All right, well, we needed that a minute and 20-second bumper video there so that I wouldn't look so bad after coming out from such an incredible performance. Man, they nailed it, didn't they? Yeah, wow. Well, we started this series called Mr. and Mrs. Betterhalf, and when I started this, I shared this message with you called Half and Half. And I shared with you, I said, when it comes to Mr. and Mrs. Betterhalf, it's not about being in a competition. You're not competing to try to be the better half to where you're going to be the one that you're going to win. It's not something that's just supposed to be this sentiment out there that you really don't mean. There's something about this. And here's the thing. When it comes to healthy marriages, in healthy marriages, each spouse sees each other as the better half. And so this is something that we're going, hey, this is something we need to be. If we're not already there, this is what we need to aspire to. This is what we need to work on. That if you're married and if you're single, you're going, okay, let me take some notes. This is what it's supposed to be like when I do get married. Because we need to be this half and half. We need to be this Mr. and Mrs. Better half is what we are striving for. And as we looked at this, we just looked at Adam and Eve. We looked at this first coming together. And we looked at just a couple of key things. We looked at how a better half, what do they do? They leave and they cleave. They leave the home of their birth. They leave what they grew up with. They leave and they cleave to the one that they commit the rest of their lives to. That it's a leave and it's a cleave. And it means that you leave home and you leave home physically. Yeah, and everybody check, got that. But then you leave home in some other ways too. You leave home financially, right? You leave, okay, we're going to be on our own. You leave home emotionally. You leave home relationally. You leave and you cleave. And also a better half anticipates and celebrates. They anticipate the one that they're going to spend the rest of their life with. They anticipate this. They anticipate whenever they've been away of getting back together and seeing each other again. They anticipate and they celebrate. And it is so easy to become the better half when your other half celebrates you as the better half. And so it's this dual responsibility. Because half and half, it brings a wholeness to the relationship. And it takes these two halves, because two halves make a whole. Because see, just one better half makes for a lopsided marriage. But two better halves makes for a lasting marriage. Well, today we're going to talk about the search. The search, because I think that it's important when we look at a marriage series that we talk to the people in the room that are not married and going, hey, well, what is it when it comes to the search? What should I be looking for? What should I be doing? How should I be going about this? And we're going to talk about the search. And you might be going, I'm married. Oh, great. You know what? We rearranged our schedule because we knew it was going to be back to Mr. and Mrs. Betterhalf, and one of us wasn't going to be here. And I said, no, you're going to be here. No, we're here. And you're going, and now you're going to talk to singles? We could have gone to the lake this weekend, honey. I think that there's going to be some things that are absolutely going to be worth hearing if you're married. I'm going to get to a little bit more of that later. But singles. Do we have any single ladies in the room? Woohoo! Single ladies? No? Single ladies? Okay, we got one. Yeah, okay. We got a few. We got some single ladies. Okay? And so listen, I heard about this. I don't know if it's something you're interested in or not, but in New York City, there is the husband store. There's a husband store. It's a very unique store. It's 6 stories high. There's unique things on each store. And so this lady, she went to the husband store because she's exhausted everything else trying to find a husband. And so she heard about this. So she goes, okay, well, let me go try the husband store. So she goes to New York City. She finds the store. And as she gets to the store, she walks in, she's greeted by somebody, and they begin to share with her, hey, well, have you ever been here before? Okay, no, that's good, because we only let people come once. So that's good. Okay, well, let me tell you a little bit about the rules. There's some house rules. And the house rules are that you can shop a floor, and if you end up leaving that floor, you cannot return to that floor. That floor, the merchandise is off limits once you leave that floor. So make sure that you're willing to leave that merchandise behind before you move to the next floor. Do you understand? Yeah, I understand. Okay. Well, very good. Well, let me walk you over to the entry. This is our first floor. And as she walked her into that entry, there was a sign as she would walk in to see the merchandise. And the sign said, "These men have jobs. I mean, she was like really excited. Wow, guys that actually have a job and hold it. And she's walking in and she's looking at this merchandise and she's like going, wow, these men, there's some good options here. But she said, but there's a lot of floors. You know what? As much as it's a good thing, let me at least see what else there is. So she goes to the second floor. And when she gets to the second floor, there's a sign and it says, these men have jobs and love kids. I'm liking this. So she goes and she's looking and she's seeing the merchandise and she's seeing these men, and so she's going, this is good, but I know there's more floors. So she goes to the third floor. And as she gets to the third floor, there's a sign that says, these men have jobs. These men love kids. And these men do housework. Oh. Say it isn't so. And so she's looking around and seeing, and she's seeing some great options. But she's still, let me keep looking. She gets to the next floor. These men have jobs. These men are men that they love kids. These men do housework. And these men are good looking. And she goes in and she's looking around and she sees some real tempting options. But there's just something nagging at her. That's two more. I've got to at least go to the next floor. And so she gets to this next floor, floor number 5. And it says, these men have jobs. They love kids. They do household chores. They are good looking and are true romantics. And instead of going in there and looking like she's been doing everything, she just decides, you know what? Every floor just keeps getting better. And so I'm just going to go to the 6th floor. So she goes to the 6th floor, and as she gets to the 6th floor, she's met with this digital sign. And the digital sign says, you are visitor number 38,772,412. There are no men on this floor. This floor solely exists to prove that women are impossible to please. Well, the store owner got a little concerned that he was going to get sued over some gender bias issues. And so he decided quickly that he better open a store for wives. So he does, and he goes on the hunt, and he looks, and he tries to find, he wants to have the same exact setup. So he looks, and he finally finds where he can get another building. It's 6 stories high, and he's going to follow the same model. And so a gentleman goes into the store. And as he goes into this store, he's looking and he's trying to find out, I'm looking for a wife, nothing's worked out. And he goes in and he gets explained the same rules. And he's like, okay. And so he walks to where the women are. And he walks in and he gets ready to see it. And he sees a sign. And the sign says, these women love sex. Yeah. And he's like, oh, this is great. It's got a good start. He goes in there and he's looking around and he's like, and he didn't want to be somebody that was accused, of just being, you're just after one thing. So he's like, I can't stop here. I've got to go to another floor. So he goes to the next floor. And the next floor says, these women love sex and are rich. Floors 3 through 6 have never been visited. Well, we are going to talk about the search today. We are going to talk about the search. 45% of adults in America are single. And when you're single, there's a few people that they're content with their singleness, and there's many people that are single and they're going, you know what, I want that companion. I want a life mate. I want to marry one day. And whether it's marrying one day, whether it's marrying again, And so we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about the search and what do we do with the search and how do we go about it. Because one of the most monumental decisions that we'll ever make in our life is whether or not we're going to get married. And if you decide that marriage is something that you're gonna have a go at, then the next big decision that follows that is who. Who is it that you will actually marry? Who is it that you're going to wed? And the person that you marry will dramatically influence the rest of your life. The person you marry, they will dramatically influence the rest of your life. Even if you don't stay married to them, they will dramatically influence the rest of your life. And so it's a major decision. And since it's such a major decision, we need to go, well, you know what am I supposed to do? And how am I supposed to choose? And before I get any further, I've got to give you this disclaimer. And the disclaimer is this. I know I've already said it, but I cannot overemphasize it. Today, I am going to be talking to singles. And the reason I'm emphasizing this, and this is a disclaimer, is because there's going to be some of you that you're married and you're going to hear some things. You're going to go, oh, I don't have that. Oh, that's what our problem is. And you're going to walk out of here going, you know what, I think the preacher's telling me I need to go get a divorce. And I'm not. I might be indicating where there's some problems and why you're having some problems. But what you have to do, if you're married, you've got to go, okay, well, how do we close that gap? How do we work on that? And how do we get to a place where that is true for us? But don't walk out of here thinking, oh, well, Pastor Will, he laid it all out. And you know what? We're just not supposed to be married. Were you listening to the message? To where I want the other one to be able to say, no, were you listening to the marriage? Because he was saying very clearly, this is for singles. But I think there's something to take note of. That if you're married, if nothing else for you to take notes, you might be blissfully married and you're going, it just can't get any better. If nothing else for you to take notes is because you know single people. You do. And there might be some things that I share with you today that you might be able to pass on to somebody else when they come to you and they're seeking some of your advice and your insight. And so I think it's going to be worth taking note for everyone here. With marriage being such a major, major decision, wouldn't it be great to know, well, what are we supposed to be waiting for? Wouldn't it be great to know what is it that we're supposed to be basing our decision on? And so that's what we're going to be looking at today. So let me tell you another thing that's just kind of my opinion out there. I can't prove it biblically. But my opinion is this. I don't believe that there's just one person for each other, that this is soulmate only and this is the only opportunity that I'm ever going to get with somebody. Some of you guys, that might really mess you up. What? You're a preacher? And you say, I just don't believe that. But the reason I don't believe that is because of who we are as humanity. We are constantly messing up God's plan. We are constantly making choices that are counter to what choices God wants us to make. And if that was the plan and that was God's only plan, I think every single one of us wouldn't have the opportunity to marry that one soulmate because somebody else took them. Because of these choices that we end up making. And so I just don't believe that. I believe that there's somebody that we can be marrying and that we can be joyfully married to. But I think there's more than one of those people out there. And I that's just what I think and what I believe. But once you get married, that should be the one that you're all in on. And you're not like going, well, maybe there is still somebody else. You need to be all in on the one that you jumped in with. That too many people who end up marrying, they later end up thinking and saying, I married the wrong person. And they end up saying, I married for the wrong reasons. And they end up getting out of their marriage, or they stay married, but it is miserable. Love isn't a big enough reason to get married. It's not a big enough reason to get married. It's important and it needs to be there, but it's not a big enough reason to get married. That when you marry somebody, you marry all of their backgrounds. You marry all of it. You marry the family background. You marry the financial background. You marry the spiritual background, the emotional background. You marry the background, everything. You marry their ethical background. You marry everything about them and all of their backgrounds. And that we need to take our time and make sure that the person that we say I do to is somebody that we've looked and seen and gone, okay, am I going to be able to go all in on your backgrounds? Because we can fall in love with just about anybody. That I believe we can fall in love with just about anybody. We can be single, fall in love. We can be married, and we can fall in love with somebody. We can fall in love with just about anybody. When I was a youth pastor, this Proverbs 4:23, this Proverbs was a proverb that I just shared frequently with teenagers. Because I just think there's so much understanding here that if we could grab this, it would help us throughout our lifetime. And the Proverbs writer, who is Solomon, wisest man, he shared this. He says, guard your heart above all else. That we need to guard our heart. We need to do what? We need to guard it above all else. Why? Well, he answers that. For it determines the course of your life. That it's our heart that determines the course of our life. How many times have you heard the advice or given the advice? Follow your heart. So we need to guard our heart above all else. For it determines the course of your life. And just because you love somebody doesn't mean that you need to marry that somebody. So we've got to look at this and see that I believe that there are some relational deal breakers. That when you're dating and as you're getting to know, that there are some things that they are relational deal breakers. That these are things that they're going to bring too big of a hardship, too big of a problem into a marriage. And so there should be these minimum guidelines, these minimum standards that we would take time to establish, and we would understand what are our non-negotiables when it comes to me and what I'm going to do when it comes to marrying somebody. And that we need to know these and figure these out. That we shouldn't be saying I do without discovering what we should be waiting for. And so there's some things. And I want to share with you 3 qualities worth waiting for. 3 qualities. Will, there's only 3? I think there's probably more than 3. But these are 3 big ones. And I don't want to give you so big of a list that you're going, there's those 20 things that we should be. I want you to just be able to hone in and go, if I just have to remember 3 things, what are those 3 things? So that's what I want to talk about. That's what I want to unpack with you. And so that first quality, it's spiritual unity. That there should be spiritual unity. Listen, if you don't have spiritual unity, you're going to miss out on the intimacy that God designed marriage to have. That if you don't have spiritual unity, you are going to miss out on having the kind of intimacy relationally, emotionally, physically, sexually. You're going to miss out on the kind of intimacy that God designed marriage to have. And so we need to have this. In fact, we can look inside of our Bible and we can see when it comes to relationships that if somebody is a believer, that they should be seeking God's blessing in who it is that they're going to be married to. And as we look at this, we're going to see this instruction in 2 Corinthians, starting in chapter 6, verses 14 and through 15. And Paul, the apostle, he's writing this and he says, don't team up with those who are unbelievers? How can righteousness be a partner with wickedness? How can light live with darkness? Then he says, what harmony can there be between Christ and the devil? How can a believer be a partner with an unbeliever? When you look at divorce statistics, 2 out of every 5 marriages end in divorce. 2 out of every 5. 1 out of every 2.5. I don't know how you have 2.5 marriages, but 1 out of every 2.5. That is painful to know that there is a 40% mortality rate to marriages, that they just end. However, when a couple goes to church together, and that couple that goes to church together, they pray together regularly. And that couple that goes to church together and they pray together regularly and they read their Bible together, the divorce rate changes from 1 out of every 2.5 to 1 out of every 1,105. It drastically improves your chances of staying married. Just coming to church together doesn't change the statistic one bit. It takes more than just attending church together. In Romans chapter 1, verse 12, Paul writes, he says, when we get together, I want to encourage you in your faith, but I also want to be encouraged by yours. That's what should be happening inside of marriages. That couples are encouraging each other with their faith. That's what is taking place. And maybe you're here today and you are married and you're here by yourself and you're married and the person that you're married to, they don't go to church, they don't believe in God, and you're like going, oh, we don't have this, and oh, wait a second, I don't know, what am I supposed to do with this? Well, take note of this passage. I'm not going to read it. I'm just going to kind of prick your mind and go, hey, are you interested? Are you curious? I think that you should go and I think you should read 1 Corinthians chapter 7 and see the instruction that was given to people who are believers. They believe in Christ and they're married to somebody who is not. And there is some very specific instruction that Paul gave to them. It's in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, and you can find it starting in verse 10 and just reading through that, because he gives some very specific instruction. When we look at a marriage and we look at the search and who we're going to partner up with, that it's like having a leg that we are trying to put together so that we can have this relationship that's going to end up standing. And yet, if you only have just spiritual unity, you're not going to be able to stand very well. And so you need another leg. We need 3. And the next one I want to talk about is directional compatibility. The directional compatibility. It's one of these qualities. And see, it adds another leg, which makes it balance a little bit better, but it's still not enough. There's still more that has to take place. But let's look at this together with this directional compatibility. That I think, I'm just under this opinion, that I believe that a bad marriage is worse than never marrying. That's just my opinion that I have. And I know that some people, the best thing that came out of my bad marriage was my kids, and I get it, and you love your kids, and they're God's blessing to you. But I think a bad marriage is worse than never marrying. And when it comes to the search, one of the things that just naturally takes place for us is the opposites attract. That we're attracted to qualities and character traits that we don't have. That if you're a quiet person, that you're attracted to somebody that can be a little bit out there, that they just kind of put themselves out there and they're just more outgoing and they're doing more things and you're really attracted to that. And if you're that outgoing person, you admire that somebody can just kind of sit at home with a book and just stay at home all day and you never had to go any. Wow, I don't know how you could do, and we begin to admire these strengths that the other person has. We just look at them and go, I like that. If you're that person that you're a planner and everything's got to be organized and scheduled and laid out and you've got the next 10 years scheduled, you're attracted to a free spirit. That you look at a free spirit and you go, that's so amazing that you can just get up and whimsically go do something. You know how long it would take me to plan to just choose to go to Olive Garden? And for that person that's the free spirit, that they're looking and they're going, I don't even know how to plan anything. What? You're a planner? I love that about you. Tell me more because I wish I could. And we do. We're attracted to these strengths, these opposites. They attract, and it's a good thing because when we come together and we do that with harmony, it allows us to have a more complete package. If you're driven, you're looking for somebody that's more relaxed. Who we are, we're out there, you're an introvert, you're looking for an extrovert. We just do, and we love those things in other people that we're not like, and we admire them. But yet, if those aren't focused on the same direction, if you don't come together and go, hey, your strength plus my strength, we can conquer the world because we're focused on it and this is where we're headed. If you don't allow that to be something and you don't harness that to be moving in the same direction, you will very quickly begin to move apart. Very quickly. And you'll begin to resent that strength that you fell in love with. And so there's got to be this directional compatibility. That when you're looking at life and looking at these ambitions and looking at where is it that people see themselves and how is it that together we could be moving toward that. That there needs to be this directional compatibility through our faith, and we've already talked about that. There needs to be some directional compatibility when it comes to our family. There needs to be some directional compatibility when it comes to our finances, one of the most cited reasons for a divorce. There needs to be some directional compatibility when it comes to our friends, the type of people that we're choosing to say, these are who we want to hang out with. Directional compatibility. That must be there. It is a quality worth waiting for. That we've got spiritual unity that's a quality worth waiting for. We've got directional compatibility, which is a quality worth waiting for. And the last one that I'll share with you is emotional stability. That emotional stability, it's one of these qualities, these character traits that are absolutely worth waiting for. So that our marriage has a chance to stand, of having these three things. It's going to make it so much more stable and rock solid when all three of these are present. Now, none of us are perfect. We all have our faults and our flaws. We all bring baggage to a relationship. So nobody's perfect. But there should be emotional stability. All of us, we're all broken. I'm broken. There's things about me that Cheryl has to put up with. We're all broken. But there needs to be emotional stability. More than half of all divorces had at least one person state that there was not emotional health. There was not emotional stability. Over half. That we need to stay away from marrying people when they can't control their anger. That if they can't control their anger, you need to back off. You need to step away. I'm curious. How many people here Whether it's through your dating life or through your marriage that you're in or a marriage that you've had, or how many people here have ever dated somebody and had this thought, I can change them? Yeah. How many people have been successful? Yeah. I actually expected a couple of hands. I think there's a few exceptions. But it's an exception. It is not the norm. That we should not enter into a marriage going, I can change them. I can fix them. I can get it right. Just give me a little time. I think it's okay to have that mentality when you're dating. And to see if you guys can work that out and see if those changes are there and see if they're going to stick. But once you say, I do, that should not be a mentality that we have. Proverbs 22:24 says, don't befriend angry people or associate with hot-tempered people. That whoever it is that you marry, they shouldn't have anger issues. They shouldn't have addictions. And they certainly shouldn't be bitter people. That if you're marrying somebody that's where they're at, they're going to bring all of that in to the marriage. And so you've got to be careful. And you've got to go, hey, marriage, it's this thing, and is it worth the wait? And I think the answer is yes. That when you look at people and you're dating and you're getting to know them, and pay attention to whatever they resent. Because what they resent, they tend to resemble. So pay attention to this. I got to ask yourself, how do they treat their family? How is it that they treat their friends? What is it that their coworkers have to say about them? You need to ask yourself these things. And sooner you get to the bottom of these things, that if you see this, there's not what you need to have, spiritual unity, directional compatibility, emotional stability, the sooner you can see that you need to get out of that relationship. And it takes more than a few dates with some open conversation to make sure that all of those are present and accounted for. So you need to take your time. Listen, time is your friend. And if you know the relationship is going nowhere, then get out. Get out. Don't stay around, because the longer you linger in the relationship, the longer you hang out and you just linger in the relationship, the more painful it's going to get. So don't linger. So I share all these with you because I trust another Proverbs. Proverbs 28:23, it says, in the end, people appreciate honest criticism more than flattery. So I'm just trying to be honest with you, just trying to be real with you, those of you guys that you're single. That you can know, okay, well, hey, we sang the song, I will wait. And so what is it that you should be waiting for? You should be waiting for that person that has spiritual unity. Wait for that person that has directional compatibility. Wait for that person that has emotional stability. This is what you should wait on. And if you don't know what you are looking for, you won't know what to wait for. So you have to know. Because see, we're all after one thing. When we're single, we're all after one thing. That we're going, I want this companionship. I want to have this, that we long for, being connected to somebody that's going to be our better half. We long for this. And so wait. Time is not your enemy. Time is your friend. And take the time to learn who it is that you're dating. Take the time to learn. Do they have the qualities that are matching up with mine, so that we can truly be set up successfully to be Mr. and Mrs. Betterhalf. Pray with me. God, during the search, it's so tempting for some to get impatient. It's so tempting to settle because somebody makes us feel special. God, I pray that you would just take today's talk and for those that are single or even those in this room that are married and that we're just going to have the opportunity to speak into the life of somebody who's single. That we can speak into that and help lift them up and help them to see that yes, marriage is a great thing. But it's at its greatest when there's spiritual unity, when there's directional compatibility, when there's emotional stability. So God, help us to wait for you, to trust you, to seek you out and finding who it is that we should be spending the rest of our lives with. Jesus, it's in your name we pray. Amen.